shattered to unbreakable. Listen here, sweet sister. Whether you think you have one little crack or you are shattered into a billion pieces, this podcast is going to give you the resources, tools, and skills to help piece yourself back together to form a beautiful, unique, solid, and unbreakable masterpiece. You are listening to Shattered to Unbreakable, the Reclaim Podcast. Let's talk. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Shattered to Unbreakable. I am your host, as always, Brandy Babin, and we are going to be talking about the mundanity of life leading you into something great. So I know I've done an episode of just the mundane, and I wanted to take that a step further on saying that the mundane parts of life are actually training and building you up to something truly amazing. And it might not even feel or seem that way, but I wanted to bring up a couple of stories that I've recently heard that just made me think. And one of those stories is the story of Adam and Eve in the garden, and how after they had eaten from the apple, they felt ashamed. They noticed their nakedness. And somebody brought up this point. It was actually in the Warrior program. They brought up the point that before Adam and Eve ate the apple, they were already on this likeness of God level. They weren't ashamed of anything. There was no weird, icky self-awareness. And the devil actually offered something that they already had. So he said, if you eat this apple, you will be like God. They already were. Like, he had made them in his likeness. They already were like God. And so what the devil did was that he tricked them to believe that they didn't have what they already had. He tricked them to believe that they weren't already who they were. And that really resonated with me because I feel like in our world, we already are. And then the whole way to get you to buy products, the marketing, to get you to come to somebody else's belief is to convince you that you're not. And that is like, is this not mind-blowing to you? This was mind-blowing to me. I'm like, yes, because just the story that I always tell about being a child. When you're a kid, you think you're the bee's knees. Like, you're the coolest kid on the block. You're the funniest kid on the block. You're the most good-lookingest kid on the block. Your parents love you the most. You have the best friends. You're the best at the sports that you play. You make the coolest Lego buildings. Like, you are the coolest kid you know when you're a kid. And that is endlessly what we work towards when we become adults, is to become that childlike belief in yourself again. And the only reason we have to strive to become that again is because somebody convinced us we weren't that. Somebody convinced us that we weren't the most good-looking person, that we weren't the best at that sport, that our Lego creations weren't that cool. All of these things we're convinced of. How crazy is that? So the fall is happening to us all in our life cycle. We are born thinking that we are the most loved, most courageous, most amazing person on this planet. And then the devil comes in with this lie that you're not who you think you are. So we spend the rest of our lives trying to convince ourselves again that we are. We are who we think we are, or we think we should be. And then we have society telling us who we should be, right? God was like, why are you hiding? What are you afraid of? Who told you? Who told you? And that's what I like to say. That's part of my website is like, who told you you weren't good enough? Who told you that you weren't pretty? Who told you these things? What the heck? Give them back. I know I've told you guys before, but when I have a belief about myself that isn't mine, I literally hold out my hand and I push it forward. And I say, this isn't mine. I'm giving it back. You would be surprised how amazing that feels, how refreshing and cleansing that is. It's the neurological pathways in your brain, and it does connect deeper if you put emotion to it. So I know you've heard of like high five yourself or have some sort of action that goes with a word to help you cement that in. And it's no different with this. So you would grab that thing that's not yours. You're not pretty enough. You're not smart enough. You're just not enough in general. You don't have enough money. You don't drive the right car. All of these things, you just hold it in your hand. And you're like, these aren't mine. I'm giving them back. It also works well with abusive parents or spouses or friends or family. If they're telling you something that you know is not true and they're just being hurtful, just give that back. Give that back. So now, when I'm breaking this down to the mundanity of life, I'm thinking about when you know you're meant for something, but you're kind of feeling like you're coasting. And that's not always a bad thing. And in light of exposing society's messages that maybe aren't so helpful for everybody, I want to talk about the message of your time is now. Don't waste time. Our life is short. All of these messages of like, if you're coasting, that's wrong. If you're taking a break, that's wrong. Now, there are moments like if you're not acting because you're fearful or you have imposter syndrome, you're like, oh, I don't want to do it because I don't know it all yet. I don't want to do it because it's not perfect yet. That's different. If you're not acting because you're fearful, then that's something that you should work on seizing a little bit more. Like if you know you're ready, well, I guess you don't know you're ready if you're fearful. If you have a calling to do something and you're just fearful, it's time to step out. That's when the your time is now really applies. But if you're in a moment or a season of life that feels mundane, but you're not sure what to do yet, the worst thing you could do is just go do something to do it. What's being called of you now is to learn from this mundane part of life. To put this into a story, I saw a reel about how Jesus was a carpenter for the first 30 years of his life. He was a carpenter. And so that's not anything to do with his purpose. His purpose was our salvation, right? And so woodworking, staying kind of hidden. I don't know if any of you watch The Chosen right now, but his followers were kind of like, what are you waiting for? Aren't we supposed to like go do some stuff, like big stuff? Aren't we supposed to be doing that? And Jesus just kept saying, it's not time yet. It's not time yet. It's not my time. And it wasn't because he was fearful. It was because he knew if I do this too early, it's not going to work the way I need it to work. So he had this divine timing, right? Which we don't have. We're not omniscient. We don't know. So, but you do kind of know. Like you have this instinctual energy feeling of when you know you're supposed to be someone or do something and you're just hanging back out of fear, you know. And if you know you're supposed to do something and you're ready to go, but something is stopping you, you know. But if you don't know what that is yet, or you know, like for me, reclaim. I've been told by a lot of people, you're just not doing enough. You're not doing enough social media. You're not promoting your book enough. You're not doing this enough. And I get that. I get that. But there's something in me that says it's not my time yet. I know that the guidebook is great. I know that this podcast will catch on. I know that, like, right now, I'm getting my degree in psychology and I'm going to get my master's after that. And my kids are still young. So, traveling around the world public speaking, which is what my goals are, is not fitting in where I'm at now. And if I die tomorrow and that stuff doesn't get done, my journal still exists. The podcast is going to live on forever, and the message will spread regardless. So that's one of the reasons why I continue to do the podcast, even though I know that the time for Reclaim to really impact millions is not here yet. But these podcast episodes will live on. And so I got to keep doing this. I've got to keep doing this because I've got things that God is feeding me to show you all and to tell you all, and I want to keep that going. So going throughout the mundane part of my life, I never thought that I would be doing roofing. I never thought that I would be managing a roofing company. That was never on my list of dream jobs. But I'm having so much fun. I'm learning so much. The culture here is amazing. And so this is a time in my life where I'm preparing. I'm learning. And as the Bible always says, Mary takes these things and holds them in her heart. Every day that I live, I'm seeing who can I learn from? What can I learn? What can I spread? Who can I love? Those are the fun things about just the mundane day-to-day life is like, what can I learn to prepare me for later? So I love going through these online courses, although I hate homework. Who doesn't? But the online courses are giving me more information. They're giving me insights. They're giving me education, experience. And then when the time is right, Reclaim will explode and I'll be ready. I'm not ready yet. So it's not out of fear because you guys know me. I don't have a lot of fear. I'll just go do whatever. But I know that the time is coming. and I want to be prepared and I'm doing my due diligence. So that's what I mean by, like, Jesus was a carpenter for the first, like, I don't know when he started, but until he was what, 31, 32, somewhere around there, he was a carpenter. Then he went into his big masterpiece of work. And even like kicking it off, the wedding at Cana, where his mom was like, hey, Jesus, they need wine. They're out. This is an embarrassment. You have to do this for them. And he was like, woman, it is not my time yet. It's not yet my time. And she just ignored him. She was like, just do whatever he says. It'll work out fine. She had unending faith and knew what he was capable of. And so he did it because it's his mom, and you always listen to your mom, right? So, but I love that story because Jesus knew when his time was, and he knew when the impact would happen. And so I just want to give you guys hope that when you feel like you're in this mundanity of life and the message all around you is seize the day, do it now, life is short. What are you waiting for? Don't be a coward. You know, a lot of self-help books are like, you just got to grab the bull by the horns. Don't wait till you know enough. Don't wait for perfection. And that is, there's a sense of that that's true. I talked about it a couple weeks ago. Like, don't wait to be perfect by any means. Don't wait for that because it'll never happen. And that's out of fear. If you're not doing something out of fear because it's not perfect, right? But I just want to point that out, that this mundanity of life, this season of the mundane, it might be preparing you for something. So don't waste it. Learn, grasp, pay attention, watch people, watch life lessons, see what's going on around you. What are you learning every day? What are you striving for every day? Sometimes it's just the habits. Sometimes this level of success that you know that you're destined for takes a certain level of discipline and habits and this person that's ready for it. And if you, like, God might be waiting for you. He's like, I just need you to just tick up a couple more levels and then I can help deliver this thing. But if I give it to you now, it's going to fizzle out and die. And it's too important for that. So, you know, get this solid routine, get that daily prayer in your life, get some movement going in your body to stay healthy, you know, drink the amounts of water that's healthy for you, get enough sleep, spend time with family, learn more about them, make it about them and not you. All these little life lessons that you're learning along the way are preparing you for this really great, amazing purpose that you were destined for, which makes me very excited. So something that I heard on, I think it was Alex Hermosi podcast, surprise, another Alex quote, but he was talking about how there's not always a lesson in struggle. There might be action in struggle. So pay attention to times in life where you're struggling. And if you feel like, I've already learned this lesson, or why am I going through this again? The lesson might already be learned. It might be requiring action now. It might be time for you to do something about it. And that's why we have all these beautiful charities and not-for-profits. And I've told you guys before, if you're having a hard time understanding what your purpose is, pay attention to what makes you cry. Whatever makes you cry, whether it's happy, sad, frustrated, that is where your purpose is. That pain is where purpose starts to blossom. And that pain that you're going through, you're not alone in that. There's billions of people going through that same thing, and they need your voice. So it might be your job to speak for those who can't or are afraid to. It might be your job to start a nonprofit or a charity. Maybe it's time that you get involved one if you don't start one. I actually heard somebody say, you know, you don't always have to start something. You can just be a part of something that's already started that you really believe in and support, because there's so many nonprofits and charities out there. But if you think about how many people are trying to do the same thing, how much more impact would they have if they came together and shared resources and funds and workforce and all of that? So think about what makes you cry. And if you already know your purpose, great. This is the time where you have to decide now, am I not acting out of fear? Or am I not acting because I know there's something else that I need to learn or do, or somebody I need to become? And in this new year, it's really exciting to start new habits and really think about why. I'm reading this book that is actually very depressing in the beginning, so I'm not going to say what it is yet because I don't want to like give him a bad review because I'm not done with it. But the beginning part of the book is like really depressing, but it's basically calling you out. It's calling you out. It talks about ego. So it's like, all right, are you doing this to be someone, or are you doing this to do something in the world? Do you just want fame and fortune and recognition? Are you doing this just to be famous? Or are you doing this because you really want to make a change in the world? And I'm over here like, why can't you do both? But I think what he's talking about is, what is your intention behind it? Find out why you're doing what you're doing. What do you want the outcome to be? And then we're like reverse engineer that back. So what is the desired outcome? What kind of things are going to get you there? And then break those down into yearly, monthly, weekly, daily habits. And then those are the habits you're going to want to start doing. I read this book called The One Thing, and it was very impactful, saying if you could only do one thing a day to get you to your biggest, juiciest goal, what would that be? And then you just get that one thing done every day. And you can do more than that, but if you could only do one thing a day, just do that one thing. And then you're going to hit that mark. You will. If you do that one thing every day without fail, you will hit it. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So I just want to, emphasize that there's power in the mundane, seemingly not so sexy parts of life. So I want to take the hype away from money, cars, status, fame, fortune. I just want to take the hype away for a second. I'm not saying it's wrong to strive for those things, because it's very exciting. And you can impact a lot when you have a big following, right? You can impact more people. You can spread a bigger message. It's very exciting to have a big following and to have a big message and to impact millions of people. I'm a huge Mel Robbins fan, and she just grows every year. So go Mel. So there's nothing wrong with that. But where it starts, where's your intention? Where's it beginning? And Mel, her beginning was just, if no one else tells you, if no one else has told you today, I love you and I believe in your capability to live a better life. And I just think that's beautiful. Like that's her intention. Her intention is to make sure that her target audience knows that if no one else in the world is telling you, you are loved and you are capable. And she wants you to know that. And that's been her intention, and everything she does is around that vision and intention. So the cool thing is, she didn't do any of this to get famous, but getting famous is part of sending that message to a bigger crowd and making a bigger impact. But that wasn't her intent. It was a byproduct of her biggest intent, which is love as many people and let them all know that they're capable. So think about your purpose this year. And your purpose might be huge, and it might need a good 10 years incubation before it really comes to. And that's okay. You do not have to do it this year. What you can do this year is something to prepare for that. And what you can do this year is look at the lessons and find out, is this a lesson or is this asking action of me? And find out, what is the world trying to tell me I'm not? And what am I trying to tell myself I am? And where did that come from? Get back to the core of who you were as a child. Figure out who that God-given love for yourself, that delight in yourself when you were a kid, that was divinely chosen just for you. Get back to that person and get the world's chatter out of your brain for a second. Sometimes take a good social media break for 2 weeks and just listen to your own voice in your head. You and God, just you and God, get everything else out of there. But I'm just challenging you to not feel so pressured to be your best self today. Just do a little bit better, learn a little bit more about you, learn a little bit more about where your spot is in the world, who gave you that drive and that purpose and that meaning. And I'm just really excited. I'm really excited for this year. I feel something about this year. I can't put my finger on it, but this year it's like a catalyst for a really huge thing. And I don't know if the thing is 50 years from now, 100 years from now, whatever, but this is the year. This is the year where we all get super honed in to our own alignment, and we all understand our purpose, and we all have a direction, and we all can cancel out the noise and trust in our inner self. And I just am going to bring it right back to that story of hiding. It's not a time to be ashamed anymore. You never had to be before, and you don't have to be now. That is the devil telling you that you're not who God says you are, but you are, and you always were, and they never lost it. They never lost it. They were always the same. We're still made in God's image and likeness. We never lost it, but the devil sneaks in and says, hey, if you do this, it'll make you more like who you were supposed to be. No, sorry, devil, I'm already that person still. Like I never wasn't that person. So not today, Satan, right? I love you guys. I will see you next week. Stay sparkly. Thanks for hanging out with us today. I just wanted to remind you about the resources we have on the reclaimstrategy.com. That is Reclaim University with free downloads. It's the Reclaim Guidebook, access to Kintsugi classes and events. So go ahead and take a look. Also, please share this podcast with anybody that you think might need to hear these messages. And if you haven't already and you think we deserve it, give us a 5-star rating. That just helps our reach. So I love you guys. Stay sparkly, and we will see you next week.